peculiar place to have a party.
Welcome to the Tea Party, the Hatmakers Podcast, where we connect with hatters from around the world. Talk hats and hat making to build the community and share tips and tricks to take your hat making to the next level. Wow. So sit back, pour yourself a brew and settle in because here comes the show. In this episode of the Hatmakers Podcast, we're chatting with Matt Kitto from Sierra and South. Matt is a custom hat maker based out of London in the UK. A professional musician by trade, Matt has branched out into the world of hat making and draws from a wide range of influences, from Western Couture to high-end fashion. His attention to detail and use of high-quality materials results in his beautifully finished, handcrafted felt and straw hats. So join me in getting to know Matt and widening our circle of friends in this episode of the Hatmakers Podcast. All right, Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. How about you introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, hi, my name is Matt Kitto. I make hats, if that was a surprise to anyone. Why would be on this show otherwise? And my brand's called Sierra and South. I'm originally from London. That's where I live now. I did a quick stint in Sydney a few years back. That's how we first met. I'm really happy to be invited on this. It's a really good thing you've got going on, actually. I feel like there's not enough hat makers talking to other hat makers at the moment.
Yeah, it seems to be a pretty closed little loop. Yeah, I've been watching your work for a long time, mate, and I'm always really impressed. And I wanted to have a chat, see a little bit more about who you are and your story.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how long have you been making hats for?
I would say since the beginning of 2019, I would say. It's funny, isn't it? I guess you think back to there's maybe two stages. One, when did you first start making them, and one, when were they good enough that you maybe wanted other people to see them. I think the first hat I ever did, my mum still has somewhere. I specifically made it for her because I thought that was the right thing to do, and she's got it somewhere gathering. I've actually never seen her wear it out, curiously, so maybe she's worn subsequent ones since, but that first one I don't think ever made it out of the house, bless her. But so it was around 2019 when I first started. Yeah.
And how did you get inspired to start?
I studied music at university, and I graduated back in 2014, and then from there I was drumming, and so I went off on tour afterwards. After I graduated, did that for a few years, and I guess I was just around people wanting those stage outfits, to perform in. They wanted those like special, whether it was a jacket or a pair of boots or a hat even. They wanted those special one-of-one things to be on stage with. So that's like one half of it, getting into that realm of seeing what people were wearing, and I've always been into clothing and one-of-ones and all that business as well. And I just thought, maybe there's something there. Maybe I could provide something as well for people to feed my creative making mind that you have as well. And a lot of us have one here. We have to make stuff, and then twin with that, in the UK, we've got a really big, rich hat history. And it's really interesting because it's different to you guys over there, your hat history, US's hat history as well. They're all really different. have similarities, but I think for us, we've got this almost. I don't want to say. It's a bit. The hats that we had back in the day were a bit bland for my taste. Maybe like you put them on, you put them on with your coat in the morning, and you go out and you'd wear a hat with your suit and you'd go off to work, and that's what people see our hat history as, the majority of it. So I kind of felt, because I was here, I wanted to bring the stuff that I'd seen out on the road and in other countries playing music. I wanted to bring it back here and kind of mesh the two together. So our history here and what I'd seen elsewhere, and try and make something of it, really.
Yeah, the English history seems to be more like an upper class thing, and everywhere else is more of a working class type style of hat.
100%. And like, yeah, exactly. Like, in the US, it's cowboy culture, for want of a better phrase. They're wearing those hats for being outside for 12 hours or whatever. And yeah, we would put our coat and take our umbrella and go out the door and sit on the bus to work with our hat on. Maybe, I don't, yeah, totally different.
So, did you have a background in textiles or
not
fashion design or anything?
Not at all. My parents, when I first started doing this, I think I remember my mum saying that she couldn't really believe I was doing it because I couldn't sew a straight line on a sewing machine when I was at school. Like, I remember we had a couple classes in high school, and we'd have to make like a pocket on an apron or a cushion cover or something, and it was just to get us like introduced to that world. That alongside cooking, whatever. She was like, you couldn't even make like the simplest of pocket on a thing. Like, how the hell are you doing this? Nothing in the realms of sewing or fashion. I didn't study it or anything. But I think in terms of like, I really enjoyed woodworking at school, actually. Although I never took it past high school, I always really enjoyed making things out of. I remember I made like a stroller, like a walking aid for my little nephew and stuff like that. So I always enjoyed that side of it, but I suppose that's kind of where it starts and ends. Yeah.
So how did you learn how to make hats?
There's YouTube is your friend a little bit, I suppose, back then. I definitely tried to look up as much as I could online to see, the tools that were needed. I had a couple of friends in London that had dabbled a little bit. They had one friend of mine had one block in his size, and he was in the fashion world, and he would just find old hats, strip them to nothing, and then reblock them in his size. So there was some techniques there that I picked up from him. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was online. A lot of it was trial and error. Like, I'd go around his house and I'd try and find a felt, and we'd try and do stuff there, and it would always kind of end up a little bit, not fit for purpose. But it's a funny
experimental.
Say again?
Experimental.
Yeah, some dodgy sweatband sewing and whatnot. Before, not even like proper sweatbands as well, just this funny bit of leather that I'd found and try and stitch it around the inside of that. But I think that it's an interesting point, because there's really not, from my finding, there's not a lot of places to learn this craft, unless you're maybe lucky enough to get an apprenticeship from some old timer in the US, maybe. I don't know your experience of maybe people coming to you and asking for advice nowadays, or if they can, apprentice you for a week. I've definitely had that recently. Some people asking me, but it's, it is quite closed, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly seems so.
Mm.
Have you been able to help anyone along the way in their journey?
I did last summer. We have a London Hat Week, which not many people are aware of, but it's been going for like at least 5 years, maybe 5 or 10 years now in the UK, and it's a whole week dedicated to millinery and hat making. And they asked me to do a couple classes last year. It was the first time they'd had someone from our realm of hat making do something. I suppose because there's so few of us in the UK. I think there's this is probably not correct, but the last time I looked, there was maybe 5 or 6 of us in the UK that are doing it. Maybe a few more popped up since then, but so they'd never really had anyone to come down and show what they can do. So I ended up doing an in-person and an online class where I'd block a hat. I'd then, do you know what Blue Peter is? The program? It was like a kids program back in the day, and they'd make something and then they'd start and then they'd pull out another one saying, here's what I made earlier, and it would be like halfway finished just for time purposes. I was like, well, I can't block a hat and then just wait for 24 hours for it to
let it to dry.
Yeah, so I'd pull out another one from under the desk, and then we'd I'd put the sweatband in, and then we'd like shape it, and I'd talk about all the techniques and stuff. So that was really fun, actually. I really enjoyed it. Showing other people what goes into it in an hour and a half. It's quite difficult, but I really enjoyed showing people, and since then people have contacted me saying I'd really like to come down for the day to the studio if possible and go a bit further, which I mean I'm all for. I'm not one of those people that's gonna keep the secret going. This is it's arguably a dying art, I suppose, in comparison. I know it's on the endangered craft list, definitely in the UK. I don't know about elsewhere, but for that reason, I feel like we kind of have to show people that are willing to learn what's involved.
Yeah. It certainly seems like it's making a bit of a resurgence now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you must see it all the time, but there's definitely people like popping up on Instagram, like new hat makers that then follow all the current makers, ready to learn. But we're putting up reels and videos and stuff on Instagram of how we do things, and
if you can work it out from there pretty easily.
But that doesn't mean we're all going to end up with the same thing at the end, right? If you put like 5 of us in a room and gave us all the same belt, ribbon, sweatband, we'll all end up with something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the best part of it, really.
Yeah. So what were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome to get to where you are now?
I think in terms of like the tools that were needed and the supply of materials, especially starting out, I don't think I realized how expensive it was to start, and also the readily availability of products such as like the blocks, the felt bodies, the sweatbands. We've got some really good stores in the UK for ribbon and old school trimmings and stuff like that. There's some really good haberdasheries here. But in terms of the felt bodies that I wanted to use, that we use similarly, the Western weight, the 180 plus, it's just not available in the UK. And I think that going back to like our hat history, I think traditionally we did have those lighter weight fedoras that, we didn't need the heavier stuff, that wasn't for purpose. So we have some suppliers here that have, like 110 to 160 gram felt, but it's just not. It's not heavy. It's not stiff enough for what we're doing. So I found that really difficult to try and find a company, especially starting off, because they're not cheap. We know that, but we know we get them because they're the quality that we want and the quality that will make a hat last. So, but starting off, I feel for people now that they it's definitely an expenditure to start with. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you sourcing your felts from Europe or from the States?
From the States, yeah.
Yep.
I've looked into Europe. It's just not viable at the moment. I don't think in the volume that personally I'm doing. I guess places like FEPSA and stuff like that, they wouldn't go for people that are doing a lower amount per
Quantity.
month. Yeah, exactly. So at the moment, excuse me, going from the US, yeah, and sometimes Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Shout out to the Hatmakers Emporium.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So are yours from the US as well? Am I right in thinking it's the plant in?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Mostly the US. There's two guys over there that I like to work
yeah.
with when they have stock available.
I know, it's the thing, isn't it? It's like shopping for sneakers now, isn't it? You know, when like the sneakers drop and everyone's like online ready to click the button for the latest sneaker. I feel like sometimes it's like that, especially if you want to try and get like a bone or a black felt. It's just like Christ, to be so quick on the buzzer.
Yeah, you really need like a little group where you can swap and trade between hat makers.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. That like, there's as you said, there's two people that you like to work with. We're probably talking about the same two, and that's kind of it, isn't it? Like we're quite limited, so everyone that's doing this is going to the same places, and that's definitely like another struggle. I think maybe for resource. If we were doing denim, I think it would perhaps be a different story.
Have you worked with denim before?
I haven't. I have some good friends that have a denim factory not far from where I live. They produce their own denim. They produce for other brands as well. So I'm clued up on the denim world now from those guys. But yeah, denim and leather and all that. Yeah, we're all entwined. Yeah.
So I'm curious. You're a drummer. What were you playing in a band, or were you doing some session work, or what was the story with that?
It was mainly session work actually, which I quite enjoyed because the stress was off, I guess, in a way. You kind of got told where to be and when you were needed, and that was quite nice. You knew what you were doing without the stress of being in a collective band that was, trying to make it. You already had your place, and the longest stint I did was in country music actually, which again kind of, their hats are at the heart of all that. So that was really that point where I started to notice more and more hats that looked a little bit better than what you would find just off the shelf on the high street. Right. So that definitely piqued my interest on what could be possible. Definitely, as I said, bringing it back here to this country. But you made it. Was it Drake White that you did a hat for?
Yeah, I got to make a hat for him.
Yeah,
he's got some cool music. Yeah, have you played drums for him?
No, that would have been full circle, wouldn't it? But yeah, definitely that world. I really love it, and everyone in that world's some of the nicest people that I've ever met. Did some hats for. There's a guy called Thomas Rhett, another country artist. But the guys in his band, they've got a few hats off me, and they came to London back in March, and we hung out, and everyone's just really friendly in that like genre of music. I really enjoy like being a small part of that world. Yeah.
I've noticed on some of your recent posts that you've got a little bit of a Western influence.
Oh yeah, we do. There was I picked up a the first hat was like an old beaten up cowboy hat in a really nice color, and it just looked really sad. It was in a vintage store. It just looked really sad sitting there, and the sweatband there was about a third of it left, and you know, I just thought maybe it's time that I did a little repro on a few, because the felts speak for themselves. Like they're old hats, but the felts are so good still. So I think that really tells you how the quality of the felts that we use for those hats. So I've been stripping a few beaten up cowboy hats down to nothing, just to and then rebuilding them from there. Not to what they probably once were, but just indulging myself a little bit and just trying to make some fun little bits from them. But
Yeah,
I really
it's
yeah.
it's nice to work with those vintage felts too.
And actually, the one the most recent one I put up was like a raspberry color, I suppose, and it was actually quite interesting because I'd never worked with that color before. It's not one that is available from the guys that I go to. So it's actually quite interesting. I was sat there for like half an hour just thinking like what to do with it, because it was just a color that I hadn't approached before, and I was like, there's so like the possibilities for color combinations and stuff. It tested me a little bit, but yeah, I ended up with some big old cowboy hat. That yeah,
it turned out beautiful.
Thank you.
So, do you have a preference with like the types of felts you like to use?
Definitely. I think that the lowest I'll go for in terms of weight is I'll do 180. 230 at the moment is what is mostly what I'm working with. 230 gram rabbit. It's really, I don't know for you yourself, but for me to get beaver felt is it's almost like double what the rabbit is for me. So by the time it gets to the customer, it's which is fine,
getting up there in price.
Yeah, exactly. Like people specifically want a beaver hat. I'm more than happy to make them one, but it is quite a drastic difference. But I really enjoy working with the Western weight rabbit. It's also, don't want to rub it in. I know you live in paradise, but it's getting warmer here, so finally. So it's straw season coming up. I really enjoy working with Panama straw as well. Again, I think in this we've got that sort of classic bleached white Panama hat that you see with either a navy or a black ribbon, that some dudes wear into the cricket match. It's taken over people's perceptions of what a straw hat is here, I think, a little bit, or even maybe just a big floppy wide brim hat that someone might wear on their holiday. So I really like taking the Panama hats and then, as you know, putting them into the style that we do, and showing that you can have a straw hat that doesn't need to look like this. It can
look like a grandpa hat.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like they're all just, it's when they bleach them as well. It really bothers me, because it's like you can have this beautiful natural straw, or you can dye it into, some really nice colors. And just like, just like white bleached straw. Yeah, not good. Yeah.
I've never worked with straw before.
Right.
How do you find it?
I find it, pretty much the same. They block quite similarly. I do in those cases use like the stiffening solution. I feel like I have to a little bit for the straw, especially if I want like a nice flat brim. It does need a little bit of the solution. But also on the crown as well, it has a tendency to bounce back almost a little bit if you're trying to put the pinch in. So I do always tend to put a little bit of solution there, and then when it comes to shaping it stays a little bit easier. But I really dig them. I haven't. The first one I ever did, I thought that I could set it on fire the same way. I don't know why. I don't know why I ever thought that would work. And then just went up, and that was that was
Yeah.
that. It was like the most,
Left with some ash.
yeah, it was just like the most singed thing ever. I was like, well, no one's gonna want that, are they? That's not gonna like protect your head very well, is it? But yeah, I've definitely taken a little blowtorch to a straw before, and I think they turn out really, really, really cool. Actually, yeah, I'm surprised you haven't worked with straw.
I really like them. I just haven't done it.
Yeah.
I'm curious. What happens when you trim the brim? Do the edges fray a little bit, or what?
Yeah,
what do you do there?
To be honest, most of the ones that I've ended up doing for people have had that sort of distressed look anyway. So I've suggested that we cut the brim, and then maybe we'll go out a little bit, and you get the nice little frayed edge. And then I always do a running stitch about 0.5 centimeter around from it, so that it doesn't keep going and going.
Fray too much.
Yeah, exactly. But you could overwelt them, I guess, as well. You could steam them and then fold them under and then stitch around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure.
Blakesby.
I was like, I'm sure Blakesby could explain that way better than I could. The king of overwhelming. Or there's actually the guy that I go to has 2 different sizes of the bodies. So there's a 10 centimeter one, and by the time it's blocked, I know that for like a 57, 58, I'll get a pretty nice size brim anyway. So it doesn't need to be cut. But I did one the other day where we cut it, and then I knew I was going to bind it anyway. So, but they also pencil roll really nicely. I think they look really cool with a big old pencil roll, and it had like is it the Gus crown that's lower at the front and higher at the it was so we ended up with a big old straw cowboy hat, which is quite cool. Yeah.
That's cool. So do you have a little studio, or are you working from home, or do you have a workshop?
Yeah, I have a studio that's about 20 minutes from where I live, which is quite nice, quite handy, so I can walk down there. I got it back in 2021. There's a company that take over older buildings, and they transform them, and there's about 13 studios where I am. Not too big by any means, but enough space for what I need. And they're all the people that come into these studios are all fashion and makers. So they try to get the same circle of people in that building, so we all understand what each other's doing, and there's no one like
that's pretty handy.
Yeah, there's no one like selling sweets out of one of them or whatever. But but so we've got someone, a friend of mine, who's also got a studio there. She's a costume designer. So we've got someone else that works with denim. So it's quite nice because you can kind of bounce off people sometimes for bits and pieces. I did. The dream would be to have a nice little place out the back, nice little studio or whatever. But I'll take the 20-minute walk at this point for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds nice. And do you collaborate with some of the other tenants in that collective?
We've done some of the. I've lent like hats for shoots and stuff. That for some of the people, if they've got a new collection coming out, then they'll do a shoot, and I've lent the hats to them. Or some of the I've actually found some really nice offcuts from some of the guys' material that they've used, and I've stolen that out of the offcut bin, and I was like, oh, I'll use that for one of the hats. Cheers. So that's always good. But the company itself is, and the building is like partly funded by our local council, and they have their sort of fashion district, I think they call it. So I think that's definitely a positive. So it's it shows that the council are willing to get involved and have places like this for people like us.
And so, what's your creative process like?
I think it's different. If it's a custom hat, then I really try and find out as much as I can about the person. I try and if they can come to the studio, I always suggest that they do, or we'll do a video call. I'll just try and find out even little things like that they might not think have anything to do with a hat. It might tell me a little bit about them that would inform maybe a color pairing that we go for, or some little trinket that we could find. There was a guy that had a hat from me, and I asked him what he did, and he said, "Oh, you probably wouldn't believe me." I said, "Oh, try me," and he was like, "Oh, I'm a pirate," and I was like, "Oh, like as in you dress up for like I don't know, those like Renaissance fairs or whatever. Is that what and you reenact stuff?" And he's like, "No, like we go on ships and we go off the coast of countries and we dive down and we go to the shipwrecks and we get, we pull up all the stuff that's been lost in shipwrecks and all that." I was like, "Oh, geez, all right." So, and he was like, "Oh, we had like a Discovery Channel documentary made on us." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's wild."
Wow.
Like, okay, yeah, fair enough. And so just from that story, I was like, well, what can we put on the hat that would maybe allude to that a little bit? So I got some old like little anchor charms, and we attached them to the bow, and like that. I made sure the liner was gold because I was like, well, the pirate's got to have his treasure, right? So you turn the hat open, gold on the inside. So just little things like that, I think, are what make a custom hat custom. Like that's definitely the biggest part creatively is doing bits that make that hat stand out to that particular person, for sure.
And do you do collections or ready-to-wear hats as well?
I do a few, like those Western hats that I've revamped. They'll be available. I've got an event coming up in the summer that I know that I need to have some ready-to-wear hats for. But it's not something that I focus on too much. I think sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes you'll maybe just be sitting in the studio and like, do you know what? I really want to make this hat in that color, and you'll just kind of start doing it for no particular reason. And then it ends up either being a hat that you put on your own head, or like, you'll put it up to see if anyone wants it. But I think for a while the prospect of a collection scared me a little bit. Maybe not so much what it would look like, but I think earlier on it was perhaps putting that amount of money into a collection and you weren't sure if maybe anyone would go for it. Like it is a worry. But as opposed to the custom side, it's set in stone. Whereas, I think collections are a bit trickier. But it's still something that I'd like to do. I've done some collaborations with other clothing companies, or there's been some stores that wanted a few specific hats in a certain color, or they wanted this thing on them and to tie it all together. So I've done bits like that, but again, that was knowing that the collection was already going to happen with that company, or the store had already bought the hats and to put in there. So I don't know. You're mostly custom, right? But I see that some time to time that the ready to wear stuff will get put up.
Yeah, I usually just make a hat in my size,
Yeah.
That's why they're all the same size when they're ready to wear. And I just, if I like it, I'll keep it. If not, I'll kind of put it up. Or I've tried to do a little collection before, but basically what I did was I just made one hat and I put like different trims on it and just said, this is available, and then kind of you could order from that.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? A bit of an outlay.
Yeah, for sure. You do.
And I never know what size.
I guess that's
that people
as well.
buy.
Yeah. What do? You make like a couple 57s, couple 59s. Excuse me. You did it was like a jungle. Right.
Yeah, that was just something stupid to try.
That's cool.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that you do a lot of cool bows. I think maybe I was inspired by you, actually.
Do I do cool bows? Is that what?
I think you got one right now, mate. That's very cool.
Oh yeah, little time number going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like raiding. That's the prime example of raiding the offcuts bin in the in the studio. Yeah.
Don't tell too many people. You might have like little people hiding out,
I know.
trying to take your stash.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's. I think definitely this year I'd like to do some more collaborations with other people. I think that's really what excites me, rather than perhaps straight away going for a sole ready to wear collection. I think the excitement is doing it with another maker, perhaps, whether it's a textile person or remember the one that we did for a clothing company. We used their bandanas that they had as a starting point, so we knew that the bandanas were going to go around the hat. They had these really cool like brass pin badges as well. So it was quite nice that we knew what the design was going to be, and we did them in 3 different colors. So that was quite nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Nice to work with fashion brands, and they do some cool photo shoots.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I've noticed you've got a few cool characters on your page.
Yeah, I've got some friends that are way cooler than me. I think that's what it is. Yeah, I had so Kimberly, who's quite recently on my page. She's a tailor that lives not far from me. Her studio's not far, and I've always really liked her stuff. So I just thought it'd be really cool for us to do a little shoot together and pop one of her suits with one of the hats. I think we got some really good stuff. And then another friend of mine, Lou, who is a barber and an author as well. He's like tatted from head to toe, and like he's always wearing. He's just got the best wardrobe ever. I don't know how he's collected all this stuff over the years, but he had like a pink zoot suit made, and that went on the front cover of a magazine with one of the hats. So that was pretty rad to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a really cool look for sure.
Yeah, and I remember going. I went with him to do that shoot for that magazine, and he wore the suit to the shoot. Didn't like change into it when he was there or anything. And then we walked out afterwards, and we went through a part of East London called Brick Lane, which is pretty like eclectic anyway. Like it's where all the vintage stores are, and it's a bit like rough and ready, but in the best way. And people were just like, even the people there were like, "Oh my god, there's this dude in a pink suit, like a yellow tie and a blue hat walking around." It was great. Yeah, I couldn't do that.
So, where do you draw your inspiration from with your work?
I think it's probably said by a bunch of people, but definitely where I live and where I'm from, and that history that we spoke about earlier. But then living, I found that when I was in Australia, the hats that I did there started to look a little different from what I've been doing before. So I think I was definitely drawing on a bit of inspiration from maybe the land that I was near, like the beach and stuff like that. I think that's for sure creeps in a little bit. And I tried to bring that back as well, because I wanted just something that maybe stand out a little bit to maybe some of the other people that were here in the UK. I wanted that sort of that Western influence from going to America quite a bit. I wanted that influence from where you guys are. And then also some of the colorways that I've been looking at, I'm not a sneakerhead by any means, but I found myself being drawn more and more into that world. There's like a couple of places near me where, when they have the shoes that are like wrapped in the cellophane, because they're like £500 or whatever. But I've really been like interested in them and the colorways that they do for some of like the Nikes and the New Balance and stuff like that. So I've been trying to almost take some of those colorways and put them into the hats and kind of do like an unofficial pairing with things, which I thought was quite cool. But yeah, for sure. I mean, I always found it crazy and so far removed from growing up here, then going to Australia and seeing how people grow up and where they live, and the fact that people will like finish at like 3 and then they go to the beach afterwards and stuff like that. Like it's so crazy, it's so alien to me, but it's so wonderful that's how people live. And especially like seeing where you live as well, like that must have such a huge impact on your designs and how you approach stuff, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm inspired by so many people, and I still can't seem to capture what it is that I want.
Right.
By so many things, and I'd like to put it all in, but I'm not really sure.
Do you think?
Some?
Yeah, I mean, do you think that like that sort of from my perspective and seeing your stuff on Instagram or whether it be when you post like a story or something like that, the fact that you're like, it looks like you're in the wilderness, that you are surrounded by animals and nature and stuff like that. I feel like that would have quite an impact on like the material or maybe the patterns that you use and stuff like that. You're probably just way healthier than we are here as well. I get on the tube like every day. That's not good for anyone,
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. We're about 500 meters from the beach, and we kind of back onto like a forest. So, yeah, it's not too bad. But it's kind of depressing sometimes. You look out, it's a beautiful day, and then I walk downstairs into the workshop, and I'm there till it gets dark.
Yeah,
yeah. You really got to make the time to get out and enjoy it.
Yeah. I see Dave, who did the first episode with. Yeah. Like he's just always working out on some beach somewhere, and I'm like, God, you're so
yeah, man, that dude looks fit.
So you're a better human than I am, like.
Yeah. He's got the life for sure.
Yeah, like I mean, it's pretty sunny out today, but as you said, I will then go to the studio until the sun has probably gone in. But oh well, that's fine.
I'm jealous that you're surrounded by so many creative people that you can bounce off and be inspired by and inspire at the same time,
For sure. I think that's one of the reasons why I love London. I'm lucky to have grown up here and it's that area that I mentioned earlier, Brick Lane and Shoreditch and all that. I've got a lot of friends that are around there or own businesses around there, or definitely that side of London is sort of design and makers and even the vintage stores, like the people that you see that are running those, they're very knowledgeable about things, and so you can take a lot of inspiration from the stuff they've collected. There's some great stores that have a lot of workwear from the 40s and 50s, French workwear, American military wear, like, and it all informs what you might choose to put on a hat at some point, right? Or even if you were even if I was doing a shoot, like, what clothing am I gonna put that person in to kind of make it stand out or whatever. So I'm definitely glad that I am in London. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I'll take a beach though. Like
yeah, just kind of combine the two together, be perfect.
We'll do a swap. We'll do a swap for a month or something. You can come, you'll come here and I'll go over there, right?
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll do an exchange.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite hat that you've made?
Do I have a favorite hat that I've made? There's one that I made for. There's a couple that you make and they're roughly your size or your size, and you stare at it when it's done and you think, I wish I could keep that. That's happened a few times. Definitely, that's happened a few times. And you're always tempted to like put it on your head and see how it looks on your right. But there was one that I did for the bass player from Gorillaz, and he, it was one of my favorites because of the process that we went through to get there. He has a quite a large amount of dreads that he wears up in a high ponytail almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that he was a hat wearer anyway, and the hat was I was really intrigued as to how the hat would fit or how he wore them, because it's, it was a lot
of dreads.
Yeah, exactly. So when it came to that, we had to figure out a way to, although he measured it this size, it would have to be this size, and how he wore it on his head, it was perched at an angle, and I have no idea how they stay on when he's playing on stage or anything. But yeah, that was, he had his favorite hat at the time was this reproed Western hat with big open crown. So we wanted to do something a little bit different, and we ended up with this asymmetrical crown that sort of dipped from one side and had the pinch almost running down the side. So it was totally different to anything that I'd ever done. There was leather on the brim and stuff, and we just kept, he came to the studio and we just kept pulling stuff out and adding it. It was like Charlie Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. We just
chocolate factory,
kept putting things on there. So that was really fun, just because I think it took me out of my comfort zone a little bit, of what I definitely would never have suggested that for a crown shape. But I'm glad that we went with it in the end, because it's definitely unique. But
yeah, that sounds cool. Did you have to make it a super extra large to fit with the dreads?
We ended up being it wasn't super excited. It ended up being a 62 and a half or something like that. So not super big. Yeah. I've done a 64 before.
Yeah. How'd you go with the sweatband?
Just about fit. I didn't have a 64 block, because why would I at that point? I'm not going to make that many of them. I still haven't to this day. But this guy, he was a German guy, and he was very tall, but he didn't look big. And I measured his head because I thought he'd measured it wrong. And I was like, oh no, you do have a 64 centimeter head. Apparently he'd been all over when he goes away on business. He'd been to Texas, to those fancy hat stores, and they'd quoted him $2,000 for just for a basic hat, but for 64 centimeters. So he just never found one, and I was like, well, no wonder you've got a 64 centimeter head. You're not going to pick one of those up in the store. So he actually paid to have a block made in 64, which was good. I've still got it. So yeah.
Handy.
He has to come.
So so anyone who wants a 64 centimeter size hat, just give you a call, huh?
Yeah, and he's got to come back to me when he wants the next one. So
customer for life.
What's the biggest hat you've done?
About a 64, 65.
Yeah.
Yep. And then had to kind of extend the sweatband.
Oh right, how did you do that?
I just kind of put an insert in, just cut off a little bit from another one and just extended a little bit. Yeah. It had lots of stitching.
Did you manage to still get a decent brim width out of that one? Because I suppose by the time.
Yeah, I think a maximum of about 3.5 inches. Yeah.
And you really couldn't do that if you didn't have a Western felt to begin with, right? You just wouldn't.
Yeah. If you had a little dress weight felt, you wouldn't even get it down to put the brake line in it.
Before I even got to the bottom. I've done that. I've ripped a Western weight felt before.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know how I managed that. I was pulling it down, and the on the brim it just went like that. It just a massive rip, and I was like, oh Jesus. Still don't really know how it happened, but luckily I had another one in that particular color, but this one, it still lives in the studio somewhere. I just turned it into this like weird, like a grizzly bear had attacked it sort of thing. Look, that's what.
So you're able to salvage it?
I mean, no one's gonna wear it, but it still lives in the studio somewhere. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away, but yeah.
Yeah. That sounds cool. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people well, you know how they make those two-tone hats or split down the middle and they stitch them up? Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends how much you tear it, I guess.
I've never tried. I would be really nervous, especially the ones that go down the middle. I'd be really nervous that I'd mess it up, or the brim would be like this far off, and you'd be so annoyed for the rest of the time. Like, or maybe do you cut the brim? I don't know. Would you cut the brim afterwards? I don't know. Not sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm not going to try it.
Find out.
I'm not going to try it anytime soon. Sorry. Yeah.
And do you have any favorite hat makers that you look at or follow? Or
there's a guy called Jack. He's pretty good.
Everyone has to say that.
That's been everyone's. Yeah, I'm sure.
I'll send you the check in the mail.
Thanks, mate. No, but for honestly, 100%, you've definitely been one of the guys that's been on my list, radar, whatever you want to say. As you know what, as well as Dave, to be fair, like the stuff that he does is really cool, and it's. I think it's fair to say that it's quite different from my style and your style, Pat. I think in the stuff that he's putting out.
Dave's got
his embroidery
got some unique stuff.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, it's so good. And then also, I've always really liked Alexander Westwood as well. Haven't seen
his big wide brims.
Yeah, I haven't seen too much of him lately online. I know that's a stupid thing to say because it's just an Instagram account, but I really enjoy the stuff that he does. Like, it feels really authentic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, like those like super wide brim tall crowns, like they always look so good. Like, the silhouettes of them are great. Same with Cody and Wellerman Hatco.
Oh, Wellerman.
Yeah. Those, I mean, that traditional, very clean. Really enjoy his stuff. And then I think Colby as well. I guess the Cajun hat. He's really cool. I think he's just like the way he presents himself as well. He's just this like, I don't know. I imagine him being this really larger than life character.
Yeah, I'd love to go down south and
just
chase alligators with him or something. You know, like the swamps.
Yeah, there was a picture the other day, and he was with this guy in the shop, and he had this like wizard's hat on. I'm like, what's going on down there? And there's definitely some. I mean, in the UK as well, we have people like Philip Tracy and Stephen Jones, who are the milliners to like the royal family, and or they've been like knighted and stuff for their services to the millinery and whatnot. So some of the stuff they do is crazy, and it's obviously different to the majority of their stuff to what we do. Goes down a slightly different path, but yeah, like their craft is insane. Like, I could never do what they do with all the head pieces and stuff. Yeah. But you're number one, Jack. You're number one.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thanks. You guys have a really like old company over there called Lock & Co or something. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the oldest hat shop in the world. They, not sure how old. Maybe, I think we're talking like at least 300 years. I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, a couple of hundred for sure.
It's not far from. Yeah, it's not far from Buckingham Palace, which makes sense because they were the guys that. This is how I've known it, that they invented the bowler hat.
Right.
And it was originally whoever the king was at the time. they needed, when they went riding out on the horses, his people, crew, I don't know, needed
servants, slaves.
They needed hats to ride with, but they still wanted them to look, regal,
presentable.
Good. Yeah, exactly. So Lock and Co came up with the bowler hat, and that's why they're so stiff.
Okay.
So that's a little gem there from that. But yeah, they've been going but yeah, they've got the royal like crest above the store as well, and it's like a super old school looking shop from the outside, and you go in and they're all like nicely presented, and you can kind of see down the corridor. There's all the hat boxes like lined up going down. It's all it's a really cool store. And actually around the corner from them, there's a company called Herbert Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And they made the Indiana Jones hat. They were the guys that did that. So yeah, they're still in London, and they still make them now. So you can get your own like indie hat commissioned, and they'll make the same one that he wore, and obviously doesn't look as beaten up as his, but yeah, it comes in like a box, and yeah. So yeah, cool. It's around. We've got all this hat history like still here in London. Yeah. Just trying to be a part of it, I guess.
Yeah, well, maybe you'll be knighted in the near future.
Oh God, you imagine. That's the thing. I mean, that's the, like, getting a store is one of those things I can't really imagine. I don't know if you've ever played with the idea of getting a physical space anywhere, but it seems like the most daunting thing ever. And I get asked about it quite a bit. Do you have a store? Can I come and see the whatever, I say you can come to the studio. It's a bit, it's kind of small, but you're very welcome to come. But yeah, a physical store seems like a scary thing to do. I don't know your thoughts.
Is that something that could be on the cards, or something that you'd like to do?
Really, you know what? I think if it ever was, then it would be the making space as well. It wouldn't just be a standalone retail. I'd have to combine that with whether it be working out the back or physically seeing it there in the store as well. I think that would have to be it. Because for sure, the other stores that we just spoke about, that's not visible. I think in Lock and Co, it's upstairs where they work and stuff. So I think it would be really cool to have somewhere that people can see it going on at the same time. Just get blasted with steam as they come in, or they walk past and the hat suddenly bursts into flames or whatever. But yeah,
I think that would be great. I think the hardest part would be trying to make and then deal with customers at the same time. Like, I'd probably never get anything done.
100%.
You'd really need some staff.
Yeah. Oh, and that's like a whole, especially in London as well, like tourist central, isn't it? So hopefully you would get a lot of people coming in, but yeah, and then hiring staff would be a whole another kettle of fish. Yeah. Oh God, I don't want to think about it.
Already sounds like a headache.
Business is hard.
Yeah. So, what do you love most about hat making?
Going back to when a custom hat's being made and getting to find out all these little gems about the person that you're making it for. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways, is that you are making this thing for this person that only they will have, and it hopefully it means something to them, for whatever reason. Maybe they've got something stamped in the sweatband, like a little message or something, or they've given me a piece of fabric that belonged to whoever, and they want it on the hat. I think that's the thing that I love most about hat making, is that you get to physically end up with something that person will hopefully wear for a long time, and also the fact that it started from nothing in a way, the bare materials. I think that's a really pleasing thing. I think that's probably why, for most of us, correct me if I'm wrong, but like we like the fact that we start with these individual things and we physically make something and end up with it at the end. I think that's one of the most satisfying things ever, to say that we can like produce something at the end of it almost. And it's it's like wearable art, I guess, at the end of the day. Yeah,
absolutely. I love that you can make something and you can kind of see the result within a few days, whereas if you're building something or you're an artist working with oils, it might take weeks or months before you see the final result.
Yeah, for sure. Like even down to tailoring, I guess, as well. Like you'd have so many callbacks for fittings and it could take months or but we can, relatively speaking, we can get something done quicker than perhaps other areas of fashion, but it will last longer, potentially. depends where you go with the hat, but yeah.
And have you had any nightmare stories or customers?
I don't think I haven't had any nightmare customers. No, and there's sometimes there's just things that people ask that through no one's fault, it's just not possible. What they're asking to be made, or can it be made of this material or something? I don't know. I don't know if this is the same for yourself, but I've had a few people message me on Instagram saying, I really like your hats. Can I just ask or confirm what they're made from, because I'm a vegan, or and you go down that route, and I think I'm always like very up for having the conversation as to why we use the materials that we do. I think it's important to tell people the reasons why, but sometimes it's quite difficult. And I personally, I wouldn't make a hat out of wool because the quality is just not there for me. There was a point where I did suggest it to someone who had messaged saying I'm a vegan, so I wouldn't be able to get a rabbit felt hat. And they were like, well, I don't wear wool either. And I was like, well, I really don't know what I'm going to do at this point. I guess you could have a straw hat or something. But it's that's always a bit tricky trying to navigate something like that. But there's no like man-made fiber that is as good, right? Like you can't make a hat out of, I don't know what it would be.
Acrylic. Yeah. I don't think there's any man-made fibers that are good for the environment compared to
100%.
Using rabbits or beaver.
Exactly. Like, one of the main things that I say to people is that we use this because this hat will potentially last you 35, 40 years, much like I've just proved with those Western hats that I've picked up. The felts are absolutely fine. Yes, the sweatband needs replacing. Yes, it needs a bit of a clean, but they're still fine. And you just wouldn't get that with anything if you're making it with materials that are anything less than great. So I think that's an important thing to say. But no nightmares.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
And is there something that you know now that you wish you knew in the beginning?
Patience, I think. Patience that this, like, I didn't go into this knowing that, or thinking, that I'd get to the standard that I wanted to quickly. I didn't think that. But I think just the patience to having to repeat the processes that we do so much that some of it becomes like a second nature almost. And knowing that every time that you block a hat and then put the sweatband in, when you get to that stage and you've got like the skeleton of the hat, it is up to standard like every single time. And I think that's I wish I'd known that and hadn't tried to rush through things maybe at the start, or settle for the fact that oh, that sweatband doesn't really fit quite as well as it could, but I'll just go with it because I want to just finish the hat and stuff like that. So I think for sure, like appreciating the craft of it, and to me, that's like it can look like the craziest hat ever, great, or you can put a $2,000 crystal necklace around it if you want, great.
Mm-hmm.
But if at the heart of the hat the break line is uneven, or the sweatband doesn't fit, or like the brim isn't perfectly cut, then for me that's not what a hat is.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, get that bit right and then go from there. Yeah,
do the rest.
Yeah.
Do you ever see in other people's work little things that maybe you might have done before that they miss, that they could improve? Is there any like pet peeves?
I think I am a perfectionist, like 100%. And I think when it comes to stuff like the fitting of sweatbands and also like ribbon work as well, I almost 100% you do not have to put ribbons on a hat if you don't want to. But if you are going to do it, then I really think take the time to understand, why the ribbon's curved, why you would perhaps attach the bow this way or whatever way. There's a few ways to do it, but if you're going to do a ribbon, make sure it looks clean, right? Like at the end of the day, like no gaps or anything like that. But there's definitely some times that I've seen people put up some work where I feel like they need to have a bit of maybe you need to go back to the drawing board in terms of the ribbon work, maybe. But I mean, that's just me being the perfectionist. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you agree. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I look at my own work and think the exact same.
What, really?
But I think for me, when I found out about using ferrules in sweatbands and how to really put a sweatband in, I feel like that made a big difference to my work.
Yeah.
Or how I felt about it anyway.
Yeah. I think for a while I was doing like putting the sweatband in, same as you. I don't have one of the Singer machines to put the sweatband in. I stitch it in my hand. So and for a while I wasn't like I don't know how to explain it, like doing like sort of lipping it over so that the fit is you know what I mean. So and I was always putting the sweatband sort of flush to the break line like that, and that's not an accurate fit, is it? So you're losing that amount of size. And it took me like ages to like figure out, like I'm making this hat, I'm blocking it a size up like I'm supposed to, and it's still not fitting, and it was just stuff like that. But yeah, and then you turn the corner and you think, okay, well I need to do it like this, and so yeah, for sure, like yes. I'm so guilty of doing a bunch of dodgy sweatbands to start with. Like,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, and ribbon work. Like, geez, like look at like go back to like the first photos I ever posted. It's like the first ribbon I did. It's like I'm pretty sure I almost like attempted to like glue it onto the hat because I was like, why is there a gap? Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
We learned.
I'm too scared to go that far back and look at my stuff.
I don't know what. I feel like if I delete it, people were going to be like, "Why did you delete that?" Like, yeah. It's suspicious, but yeah, it's good to see the journey that for yourself that you've gone through, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Just watch your own evolution.
Yeah. I'll do a half and half hat soon, one day. Or I don't know.
What colors would you use?
Two that are quite similar, so you wouldn't notice as much. Definitely not like a cream and black or anything like that. That's too obvious if it goes wrong. Yeah, I've never done an overwelt either. Bit scared to do that. I don't know. No one's asked for it yet. I hope they don't. That's the thing. I mean, like there's always stuff to learn, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm always trying to figure out the next thing that I can perfect. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So what's the future plans for you?
Um, make more hats, get better. I would like to. There's a real resurgence. It's been happening for a while, but of independent stores in London and some really like well curated, thought out stores. I'd really like to jump into that and get some of the hats in those sort of stores. Talk to the people that own the stores face to face, and I think that's really important because the ones that are near me, they really appreciate what's in their stores, and they choose them for a reason. So I'd like to do a bit more of that and get the hats a bit more spread out into stores. That moving away from customs at that point, but the customs are still going to be the number one thing. And maybe do a collection. I don't know. We'll see. Still, yeah, it terrifies me a little bit, or maybe a collection that appears in a store, and then that's you do a certain amount, and then that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Limited edition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I guess that's it. I guess that's definitely a selling point as well, isn't it? Like for the brand that I did before, we made 12, and that was all there was ever going to be of them. So, and I that's quite nice. It's quite definitive, and it's just another thing for people to know. Well, once that's gone, I'm not going to be able to get another one.
Yeah.
And they sold out, so it worked.
Well done.
Yeah.
That's what matters in the end.
I think I'd like to.
And sorry, guys.
I think I'd like to maybe travel around a little bit more now that maybe traveling is a little bit more freeing than it has been the last few years. I'd definitely like to go and meet some other hat makers. I know that like Blakesby went on his little trip to America, didn't he, and met a couple of guys.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool just to like hang out and you guys are a bit far away for a quick trip, but
yeah, you've already been here and done that.
That's true, yeah. But yeah, maybe hop over to the US or there's a couple guys in Italy that I know as well, so maybe it'd be nice to just hang out and keep the community up, because I think that's important. You've definitely got the community over in Australia. I was part of it for a bit, and I don't feel like we have that as much here, which is a bit of a shame. But I'm trying to get it going in the same way. So yeah,
bring it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have any final thoughts or little tips you want to share before we go?
Any tips? Sew your sweatbands.
Words of wisdom.
Sew your sweatbands properly, kid. No. I think like if this is something that you feel like you want to go into, then take the time to learn as much as you can about it. I know that's fair. I know it must sound obvious, but for sure, like do your research. Why do you want to do this? Like, please ask yourself why. Just try and get as much like knowledge as you can about it before you start making. I think that's really important to like immerse yourself in it for sure, because it's a craft at the end of the day. You know, it's a specialist craft, so it's important. And that hat I did for the bass player, on the inside we wrote "Kindness is timeless." So that's like a little thing that that really resonated with me. So yeah, be kind.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
it's an important time to be kind to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure, 100%.
Oh man, I forgot to ask.
Oh yeah,
where did the name Sierra and South come from?
At the time, so Sierra, as like I've always been, even though I grew up in London, I've always been a bit of a cowboy kid. So that sort of Sierra Nevada desert, that the imagery that it conjures up, I've always just the word itself. I've always loved how it sounded as well. As strange as that is, And then I knew for the brand name that I wanted it to alliterate. So I wanted something. At the time, I knew that I was going to move to Australia. Oh, well, you can't get much more south than that. So I was like Sierra and South, and it fitted really nicely. So maybe it does kind of bring those two worlds together a little bit as well, which is, and then me in the middle from London. So it works. In my mind.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely. Flows. It rolls off the tongue quite easy.
Yeah,
quite nicely.
Yeah. Also, I just haven't got one of those names as a brand name. Do you know what I mean? I always thought if I was like a footballer, it wouldn't sound right. But when you say that, there's just some names that work, right? When you say them out loud, but I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Sierra and South is great.
Thanks.
So if people want to find you online, where can they check your work out?
Instagram's the best place. Yeah, Sierra and South, the word. That's the best place to do it. I did have a website for a little bit, but it's so much of my traffic went through Instagram. I just thought for now I'll concentrate on that. Or you can email me at sierraandsouthhats@gmail.com if you want. But yeah, find me on Instagram. We'll have a chat. Yeah,
Instagram.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Great.
Mate, well, thank you for coming onto the show. It's been great chatting with you and getting to know you a bit better.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Like, as I said before, this is a really cool thing just to get different hat makers on and just chat for an hour or so. I think it's really cool. So I'm glad that you got me on. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. It's great to get to know you a bit better.
Sweet.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, have a good day, mate. See you later.
All right. Thanks, mate. Take care.
Bye.
Well, that wraps up this week's podcast with Matt Kitto. You can check out his work on Instagram at Sierra and South, or contact him via email at sierraandsouthhats@gmail.com. My name is Jack, and I'm a hat maker at Creatures of the Wild Unknown, so you can check out my work there. If you want to keep up with what's next on the show, give us a follow at Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Maybe even a little rating or review. 5 stars would be very nice. Thank you very much. I've got some more shows lined up very soon. My wife Mia is just about to give birth, so they could be a little intermittent, but we'll do our best to get them out to you as soon as possible. So until then, thank you for listening. Stay well and keep on hatting.